What's going on, guys? Welcome back. Today we're going to do another balance discussion video. I think we have a patch that should be dropping tomorrow. As of recording of this video, there have been no patch notes dropped. So I don't know if there's balance changes coming, and if there are, I don't know what the changes will be. So before all that occurs, I wanted to try my hand at partial prediction, partial what I think needs to be changed. And let's hop right on into it. So the first card we're going to talk about is one that was kind of already bookmarked as a... We'll probably see more changes later. And it's not Dr. Doom. It is Leader. To be completely honest, I think Leader's been fairly balanced at 3 power. Or at least he's been far less common. I still think that he's not a very fun card, so I fully expect him to get changed again. My previous balance discussion video talked about changes I would make to Leader. Long and short of it, something about the effect probably needs to change, whether it copies the first card played, first card at each location, only cards at this location. I don't know, but look for something along those lines to be the change. I don't think they're going to do a full-scale redesign to a brand new ability. We haven't really seen that yet, but nonetheless, keep an eye out for it. I don't want to spend a lot of time on Leader. We've talked about Leader to death. Something I want to spend a little bit more time on is 2 other nerfs that I think could or should happen, and it actually brings up a very other important discussion topic that might be its own video, because they are both Season Pass cards. And I think that brings up an important discussion here. So first we're going to start with Zabu. Zabu is basically like 60% of the meta right now. Incredibly powerful card, Season Pass card. I think the obvious change is to make this, instead of 4 cost cards cost 2 less, make them cost 1 less, and then you could probably even bump up Zabu to a 3/3 in that scenario, if you wanted to do that. I just think it's been I don't want to say concerning, but unfortunate trend. The last 2 Season Pass cards have been like meta warping. They've definitely been a bit too good, and I like seeing impactful Season Pass cards. I think just a little too impactful the last 2 times around. So I would expect Zabu to see some sort of minor change. I don't know if they would change him while his season is going on, so Zabu might be a next balance patch change. But the concern is, because I also think that we could or should see a change to Silver Surfer. And if you change one and not the other, the game is just going to be dominated by that one deck. So if you change Zabu and not Surfer, Surfer decks are just going to be everywhere. Surfer, I think, is a pretty easy one. Make this +2 power instead of 3 power. Surfer is just too easy to build into. And it's a little unfortunate because it's a pretty cheap deck to build to, besides the Silver Surfer. But it's just pushing out more power than like any other comparable buffs. Like if you compare it to Ironheart, Ironheart gives 3 other friendly cards +2 power. So the prerequisite here is you have to have 3 other friendly cards and you get +6 power. Silver Surfer is you just have to have 3 cost cards on the board. So 2 other 3 cost cards and Silver Surfer already beats Ironheart. So their conditions are pretty similar, and Silver Surfer is just on an entire different stratosphere than Ironheart. And that's not counting. There's actually a whole subset of cards that I think are tied pretty closely to Zabu and Silver Surfer. So we're going to talk about those in a minute. The first one being Brood. Brood is a card that saw next to no play for a while until Silver Surfer came out, and now Brood is like very good because of Silver Surfer. Gives you 3/3 cost bodies for 3, so that's 9 power alone from Silver Surfer. So that winds up being, 15 power just off of Brood plus Silver Surfer, which is pretty solid. I don't think Brood needs like a change per se. I could see tokens just having, 0 cost or something like that. But then you'd have to like worry about things like White Tiger. So I don't know how you would go about mechanically changing tokens. But I would rather see them change the cost of the tokens so they don't get hit by Silver Surfer rather than nerf Brood. Because in general, I don't think Brood deserves to be nerfed because of Surfer. Brood doesn't see a lot of play otherwise, and Brood's a kind of fun/interesting card. The next card or group of cards that I wanted to talk about, and this is more in the nerf category, but it's kind of also just like a question as a whole, and I'm going to put it under the umbrella of tech cards. So for the history of Snap, tech cards were pretty balanced in terms of they didn't get a whole lot out of being played, so you really had to make sure that they were countering what they were meant to counter, otherwise it was very weak. So when I say tech cards, I'm talking about, I mean, to a lesser extent, armor, but your major ones are things like Rogue, your Killmongers, your Cosmos is a big one, and then going all the way up to Enchantress. So those are some of your main tech cards in the game. You could even say Sandman to an extent. But when I think of tech cards, the main ones I'm thinking about are Enchantress, Killmonger, and Cosmo. All of those cards, they were never actually on the weak end of the spectrum. Like a 3-3 for 3 is okay, so Cosmo and Killmonger are already like decent. It's not top tier, obviously you can do better with a 3 cost with ability, but if you, let's say you play Cosmo and your opponent doesn't play on reveal cards, playing a 3-3 is still fine. Like, you whiffed on your tech, but 3-3 is fine. Enchantress playing a 4-4, a little weak, but you know, kind of fine. However, Zabu and Silver Surfer have now taken these cards from kind of niche, weaker inclusions to being almost no downside. You're playing a Silver Surfer deck? Yeah, toss in a Cosmo, toss in a Killmonger. Best case scenario, if your opponent's playing a 1-cost deck, Killmonger wins you the game instantly. Your opponent's playing some sort of on-reveal deck, Cosmo wins you the game instantly. If they're not, buff them up at Silver Surfer. They're going to be 3/6s, and that's still really, really strong. Same thing with Enchantress. Honestly, even Shang-Chi. 2 4-cost cards where, you know, there's supposed to be a bit of a tempo loss in exchange for a really powerful effect. Zabu makes them cost too. You know, wipe out your opponent's entire win condition with Shang-Chi or Enchantress, and you're really not even going that far behind the power curve at that point. Like, at 4, these cards are, you know, fair. Honestly, Shang-Chi's probably even a little bit above the power curve without Zabu, but all of these cards with the Zabu and Silver Surfer introduced kind of just go nutty. So I think if you nerf Zabu and Silver Surfer, I think you can go back to just monitoring all of these cards. But I think it might be time to consider that some of these tech cards need power reductions in exchange for their powerful effects. Like Cosmo, if you play him, perfectly fair to counter all on reveal effects, but maybe he should have like 1 power or no power. I'm not gonna, you know, try and speculate on what their power should be, but just wanted to point out that it might be time to look at some of these tech cards soon, because they're starting to not be tech cards anymore. The whole kind of definition of a tech card is something that doesn't necessarily fit lists, and you just kind of put it in there to counter other lists. All of these guys just kind of fit lists now. You can pack your deck full of a whole bunch of instant I win buttons that aren't really tempo losses for you or power losses for you. And I think that's kind of getting away from what the point of some of these tech cards are supposed to be. So that's it for my kind of nerf talk. I want to talk about a couple cards I think that can get buffed. And as a whole, it may sound like I'm kind of trashing the whole meta, but honestly, I think the meta's in a pretty solid spot right now. I just think Zabu and Surfer need to be toned down a little bit, and then we can kind of observe the rest. Leader redesign, go ahead. I hate the card. I would not mind to see it go away forever. But I think we're actually in a pretty balanced meta as a whole. There's a lot of viable things. I just think a lot of things are being overshadowed by Surfer and Zabu right now. The first card that I'd give a slight buff to is Luke Cage. Just make him a 2/2. Luke Cage is very niche right now. Really only fits into that Hazmat combo deck kind of thing. At least if you make him a 2/2 to match Hazmat, then they can go into like a Hazmat combo Cerebro type deck. Wong is even a 2 cost as well, or 2 power, I mean, as well. So I would like to see Luke Cage buffed to a 2, and then you can at least experiment a bit more with Hazmats or Cerebros or things like that. That would be, I think, pretty interesting. Next card I think not needs to be buffed, but could be buffed is Moon Knight. I know Moon Knight is supposed to be held in check by the fact that you discard a card from your opponent's hand, and that's obviously very powerful. But compared to the rest of the discard cards, Moon Knight probably sees the least amount of play. I'd maybe consider just making him a 3/4, seeing if that can kind of get his usage up. In general, I think Moon Knight's a pretty interesting card. I just think he doesn't beat out a lot of the other discard cards. Finally, we have 2 more buffs. And this is actually kind of more of a reversion than a buff. Crystal used to be, if you played her anywhere, you shuffled your hand into your deck and draw 3 cards. At one point in beta, they changed her to only be the middle location. I'd honestly just change that back. Have it just be an on-reveal, and it shuffles your hand into your deck and draws 3 cards. If you're really worried about her being not worth playing, bump her up to 5 power. But in general, she's not really that playable. So I'd like to see more tweaks to her. Starting with, I don't like locking cards into locations if they don't have to be. So I would change that ability for her, maybe give her an extra power. And finally, I'm going to keep asking for it. Let's just give Nick Fury 8 power. He's not that good. I know we're starting to see a little bit more experimentation with him, with like dino lists, but just give Fury 1 more power. I would ask for a Black Bolt buff, but I actually think he's pretty balanced, so I'm not that mad at that. But yeah, that's really all I could really come up with right now. There's some other cards that you can make arguments about for buffs and nerfs, but I think the game is in a pretty good state. We just need to see Surfer and Zabu addressed. Just delete leader, redesign him, it doesn't matter. But Surfer, Zabu, and then we can monitor the tech card situation. But I think that may wind up being something that needs addressing at some point. But other than that, I think we're in a really good state. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comment section about both of the meta and the changes, or what changes you guys would add or subtract. If there's any other cards that I missed, let me know what you guys think down below in the comment section. But yeah, as always, thank you all so much for watching. Please consider subscribing if you're new to the channel, and we'll see you guys next time. Peace.